Hi, it's Keith Barrow here, and you're with Work Ready Training, and we're going to be talking today about a few little bits of biology that pest managers really need to know. The first one will be a bit on body bits, and that is the real names of the things that we're talking about with the insects. So what are their body parts? And that's important because when you identify them, oftentimes the resources you use will actually use the real name. So if you know what they are, it just makes it easier. The other thing we're going to be talking about is how the insect actually develops, so how they grow up, what their life cycles are. And this is quite important for you to understand because it helps you in managing the particular pest. It'll also help you in identifying the pest as well, but certainly helps in managing the pest, both with and without pesticides. So it's going to be on a PowerPoint presentation, and I'll talk my way through it. And anything I want to explain or point to, you'll see the cursor going around on the PowerPoint. The whole session will only probably go for about 5 or 6 minutes, but it's important for you to look at it and understand. If you want to, you can take notes on the recording. You can stop the recording, go backwards, take notes, and whatnot. So just have a piece of paper and a pen. If you need to write something down, stop the recording and then start it up again when you want to keep going. So it's quite simple. Have a couple of practices. They're available all the time. Okay, righto. So let's have a look. I'll just put the PowerPoint up here, and you should be able to see the PowerPoint now as it's coming up. And here we go. So insect biology for pest managers. And the first bit, we'll just look at the body parts. So here we have an insect. Doesn't matter what it is. It's a standardized insect. And at the front, we have the head, and we've got eyes and antennae coming from the head. Behind the head, we have the first part of the insect body, and it's called the thorax. And the thorax is divided into 3 sections. Now, every section of the 3 will have a pair of legs on it. So the insect has 6 legs, 3 body parts, 2 parts each, 6 legs. If the insect has wings, these will also be attached to the thorax, but they will be on the second 2 parts if they're there. So the first part will have a pair of legs, the second part will have a pair of legs and possibly a set of wings, and the third part will have a pair of legs and possibly a set of wings. So the wings will be attached to these second parts if they're there. Behind that, we then have the abdomen. And the abdomen has all the other bits and pieces of the body in it. It doesn't have any appendages or anything like that. It's just the abdomen. So all of the working parts of the insect pretty much are inside the abdomen. And certainly the insect breathes through the abdomen. It just has little holes all the way down the sides of the abdomen, and the air moves in and out. They don't have lungs or anything like that. It just passes into the body and passes out. And at the very back, you sometimes have little appendages as well. Cockroaches, for instance, have things called cerci, and grasshoppers and a lot of other insects. The female will have an egg-laying spear down there, and also you'll find there's some vestigial bits and pieces down there which are not used. And from time to time, you'll also get stings down there. So, for instance, wasps and ants, that's where the sting is going to be. And certainly that's where the female will lay the eggs. Right, so they're the simple body parts that we're going to need to understand. See, not very hard. Just remember the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. And that's pretty much what you're going to need for this period of time anyway. So let's now move on to the way the insects grow up or develop. Now, there are 2. One is called a complete metamorphosis, and the other one is called incomplete metamorphosis. And we're starting with the incomplete metamorphosis, as you can see by the slide. Metamorphosis just means change. So this is incomplete change. And you'll see down the side here, these are all of the insects and some non-insect types, the arthropods, that actually go through an incomplete metamorphosis or an incomplete life cycle, you might hear it as well. And what that means is, if we're going over to the right, we see the adult here, and we've used the cockroach as an example. So the adult cockroach, the female lays an egg case. Now, here's an egg case, and inside that egg case, depending on the species, there'll be anywhere between 10 and 30 eggs. So there are eggs. The eggs sit around for any unspecified period of time, depends on the insect, but when they hatch, in this particular case, when they hatch, you will have the newly hatched insect, and they will look like the older adult type. So they don't, if you looked at it, you go, it's only tiny, but it does look in this case like a cockroach, sort of like people. If you looked at a baby, you'd go, yep, I can see that baby could grow up to become an adult, because we look kind of the same. We are the same. We don't go through any great changes. We actually just grow up and get bigger. And that's the case with these in the incomplete metamorphosis group. So the baby insect is small, but it still looks like the adult insect. And it goes through a series of immature changes until it finally becomes an adult. And then it doesn't grow or change anymore. Once it's become an adult, it's got the wings, it's got all its sexual body parts, it can reproduce, and it goes on being an adult, and it won't change. But you can see there that it goes through this process of gradual growth. And that's important. It's important because what it means is that this insect here, in all of its stages, lives and requires the same environment and food as every other part of the life cycle. So the adult and the young all live and eat the same, live in the same area and eat the same food. And that's important. Let's go to the next one now, and that is the complete metamorphosis. And you see again on the left-hand side, we've got a series of insects that actually go through this complete metamorphosis. Remember, complete change. So let's have a look. We've got the fly here. So the fly lays an egg or eggs. The eggs hatch. And now we've got a maggot. And you can see here that this is a representation of the maggot. It doesn't look at all like the adult fly. If you had a maggot in your left hand and the fly in your right hand, and you looked at them, you go, no, these are not related. They don't even look similar to each other. It's like a moth and a butterfly. The moth and the butterfly don't look at all like the caterpillars that they come from. So that's a complete change. So what happens with these is you start off with the adult. The adult lays an egg. The eggs hatch, becomes a larvae. The larvae go through a stage of growth until they need to go through change. And so they go into a pupal case. And the pupae transforms, in the pupae case, the larvae transform into the adult and then hatch out of the pupae, and then you've got the adult. So they go through complete change. Now, the thing with this is that the larvae and the adult are completely different. And oftentimes the environment will be totally different. The adults and the larvae will live in totally different environments. The food that the adults require or the larvae require are totally different. And so they can live in different places, in different environments, feeding on different food. And you need to understand that, because if you're only dealing with the adult, you're letting them breed, they'll be breeding somewhere else and continue with the problem. If you don't sort out both sections of the life cycle, you will have a continuing issue at the job that you're dealing with. So that's why understanding the life cycle is important. So here is just a summary of what we've just discussed with regard to life cycle. Why is it important to you? With an incomplete life cycle, an incomplete metamorphosis, the young and the adults, they all live in the same environment. They all eat the same sort of food, and they all forage in the same areas. This means that management is the same for the immature and the adult stages. Now, with a complete life cycle or a complete metamorphosis, the young and the adults may differ and need different environments. They will probably eat different food, and they may not, and usually are not, found in the same places. So the management of these usually differs between the two immature and the adult stage. You can't just do one sort of job for the insects that you're dealing with or the pests you're dealing with a complete life cycle. You have to look at both stages and attack both areas. If you only attack one, the infestation will continue, guaranteed. So that's why it's important to understand the idea of the growth life cycle. Know what you're dealing with, and it certainly helps with the treatment that you're going to do. Okay, so that's the end of this little session. Like I said, only a few minutes, but it's important. So please bear it in mind the rest of the way through the course. Thank you. Bye.